Hey Al, Cohen here. So I have gotten a bunch of questions lately, and I figured I haven't made a video pertaining to transition stuff in a while. So what a better time to do that when I have a bunch of questions. So what I've done is I've written them all down, and I'm gonna do my best to answer them in as much detail but as quickly as possible so that this video isn't too long. There are quite a few questions though, so this will be a longer video just so that everyone's aware before they start watching this. So the first question that I got was, when you started tea, did you get super hungry? And when I started tea, for about the first 4 to 6 months, I was super hungry all the time. I wanted to eat everything in my path. After the 6 month mark, 6 months to a year, it started phasing back to just being like my regular hungry that I had been pre-tea. And then in the last couple months, I'm close to a year and a half on tea now. So within the last 2 months or so, I would say that I've gotten um, not less hungry, just I'm not hungry all the time or at the specific times when I should be hungry. Like in the morning, I know it sounds terrible. I usually do try to make myself eat something when I get up, but in the mornings, I'm not hungry whatsoever. So generally, in the mornings, it's like me trying to force myself to eat something because I'm not generally hungry. I get hungry later on in the day. Like nighttime is the worst, so I have to try to like control myself and eat a decent sized dinner so that I'm not eating late at night. But other than that, I'm just a regular hungry, and it was roughly the first 6 months that I really just ate everything in my path. Um, Next question is, what was the biggest change or the biggest changes within the first 3 months that I was on T? So I would have to say that the biggest changes within the first 3 months would have been that I noticed the voice drop. That's something that for most guys, that's something that you notice usually after the first month. You'll get a little bit of a drop and you notice that your voice is different. It's not anything huge, but it does change, and that's something that makes you feel better because within the first 3 months, you'll notice a little bit more body hair growing in, and you might notice that your face is losing a little bit of the feminine fat that you have, but really within the first 3 months, it's just little things that you notice that are tiny, tiny changes. Don't get me wrong, they're awesome changes and they totally help you see that this is working, but your big changes like the facial hair and like a lot of body hair and the muscle definition doesn't come until closer to the 6 month for most people, maybe a little bit further down the line. So I'd have to say the first 3 months really was my voice, body hair. Um, Fat pretty much stayed the same, but I did notice that it started to redistribute around the 4 to 5 month mark. So it was like the towards 3 months that it was starting to, but not anything drastic. Um, Trigger warning right now, and if you know me, plug your ears. Downstairs growth happens pretty much within the first week or two, so that's something that also is very quick to happen. So if you weren't expecting that, expect it now. And other than that, like I do know for myself though, I know most guys don't have this happen this quick, but I did get a lot of facial hair come in. I did have the sideburns, the full chin strap, and a dirt stash that was pretty decent by my 4 month mark. So that was something that, luckily with my genetics, because you guys have to remember that a lot of it is based on genetics and how the tea is taking effect in your body and the dose you're on and if it's the proper for you. So the first 3 months really is just that waiting game kind of to see what pops up. But usually most guys have a good amount of stuff that pop up that makes you feel pretty good about yourself because any change from where you were is progress. So the first 3 months is just, it's quite fun to go through. Um, Was it difficult to find a doctor or healthcare being that you're trans? That, I'm gonna say I am in Canada. I do live in Ontario and I am somewhat close to Toronto, but to be perfectly honest, I had a wicked hard time trying to find healthcare. My family doctor, he's been my doctor since I was a baby. He takes care of my general health, but when I approached him and his staff about transitioning, they flat out just told me that they didn't know anything about it and they didn't feel comfortable enough to help me on that path of my life. So they told me that my best bet would be to try to find a doctor that could specifically take care of my hormones, but they would take care of my everyday health. And then those two doctors would talk and share files between each other so that everybody knew what was going on. So at that point, because my doctor actually did not know anything about transitioning, he actually didn't even know where to send me. So I had to go on an internet quest looking for a doctor to deal specifically with my hormones. It took a good amount of time to find somebody. I did end up, um, I got a referral for a doctor in Toronto, and then I was able to actually call myself for the doctor that I'm seeing now, who is in St. Catharines, and I put my name down on both lists just to see which one I could get in, because both of them had at least 6 months wait list when I started. So I did have to wait, along with trying to find a doctor, which took a good 6 months to a year, to be honest, with having to go through the internet, with having to talk to people, see if they're trans friendly, this, and that. And at the end of the day, after about a year to a year and a half, I was able to get an appointment with my now doctor who's in St. Catharines, and I lucked out big time. Even though it took longer to find her, I am so glad that I have the doctor that I do, because my doctor, one, is trans herself, so she's MTF, and that just makes you feel so much more comfortable. She's one of the leading doctors in trans healthcare right now, and she's also a teaching doctor. Her name is Dr. Massarella, and she works at Quest Community Health Center in St. Catharines, Ontario. Um, she trains doctors in her office. She goes to other offices to train doctors, and she also works in St. Joe's in Hamilton in their emergency care unit as well. So she's a very busy woman. She's been in quite a few documentaries lately, so I really did get to luck out on that point, but it is extremely hard for trans persons to find trans friendly and trans knowledgeable doctors in their areas or even surrounding. Next question. Why did I pay for my top surgery if OHIP covers it if I can apply for CAMH? So in Canada, there are programs that you can apply to, one being CAMH. I believe another is Rainbow Health, and there may be a couple others, but I'm in Ontario and CAMH is our main one, so I'll stick with that one. CAMH is a OHIP funded type of resource that trans persons can use. The way that this goes is that you have to have a referral from a doctor who is dealing with you in a healthcare sense, and they have to and acknowledge your transition. They have to refer you to CAMH. Once you are referred, for hormones or surgery, especially top surgery, the wait list right now is 2 years. That's 2 years just to get an appointment with a doctor for a consult. That's not so that you can start T or so that you can book your surgery date. That's so that you can get an appointment with CAMH to get the appointment with your doctor. At this point, the wait lists for most are 2 years, and that's really long to wait for a lot of people. So a lot of people have gone outside that box. A lot of people also who apply do not get accepted by CAMH, so then they have to go outside that box. For me personally, I did not apply to CAMH for my hormones. I was able to find a doctor that I did not need a referral to, that I could call the office and book my own appointment. So that was fantastic. It took me a while, but I found it in a shorter time than I would have through CAMH. For my top surgery, my only issue with CAMH is that if I want to have my top surgery covered by OHIP, from everything that I have researched when I got my top surgery, which was almost a year ago, was that I would have had to go to the surgeon that is specifically working directly with CAMH and OHIP. I looked up this surgeon, and for me personally, the results from that surgeon, based on the fact that I live in Ontario and I would have had to travel to Montreal and pay for my travel and my stay in Montreal so that I could have surgery. To me, this did not make sense. If I'm going to have scars on my body, if I am going to go through with my transition, and if people want trans persons to take so much time and they want them to jump through hoops to figure out, yes, they are trans, then at the end of the day, it's my body. And if I do not like the results of a surgeon for my personal self on my personal body, then I do not have to go to a specific surgeon just because it's covered. What I did was I saved up the money and I went to a surgeon half an hour from my own home with the results that I wanted exactly. I couldn't be happier, and I'm so glad I went the way that I did. I do understand that there are a lot of people who cannot do that on their own, and that's why CAMH is there. And I hold nothing against people who do that. But I have gotten a lot of flack from people because I have gone outside the coverage zone because I wasn't comfortable with the results from the surgeon that I would have been given. And I didn't like the fact that I was not fully allowed to choose the person who cut my body open and who made the scars that are going to remain on my body. So for me, it was a personal decision that I made. And I don't think that anybody, whether they use CAMH or whether they don't use CAMH, it's their own personal decision. And at the end of the day, I went the route where I paid for it myself and I busted my ass to be able to do so. And I am 100% happy with my decision. And that is why I have gone outside the funding to look for my surgeries. So, sorry if that came up a little bit um, defensive, but I've been getting a lot of flack lately for searching and inquiring about bottom surgeries and such lately, and I was given some flack for my top surgery as well because I went outside coverage, and because in Canada we have certain coverages. Remember, not all provinces are covered, and it's not as cut and dry as everybody likes to think it is. So just have a little bit of caution when you're talking to people about certain things about that. Do you have any fundraising tips? So, tips that I can say that I've used that have worked great. GoFundMe does work. One thing I do suggest for GoFundMe is that when you do use it, make sure that you are using it appropriately. Make sure you are using it for the necessary needs and not your wants, because um, GoFundMe has become saturated lately with a lot of wants versus needs, so it's hard to filter through and decide. Somebody might not want to donate to you because they've had a bad experience with somebody else, so that's something you can be careful with. If you're handy in any way, you could offer your services. Winter is coming. If you live somewhere where it snows, go shovel. Because you know what? If once you have your surgery, you gotta wait for a bit, so you're not going to be able to shovel after. So get all your shoveling done now and do it for some other people and make some extra cash. Also with trans fellas, we have put on some fundraisers for some of the guys that we know in our area. We put on a drag show, and usually we try to make it also more of an event every time that we do it, so that there's more of a mingle, there's more raffle prizes, this, that. Usually, if you're putting on a fundraiser, people are quite generous and can give donations. So usually something along the lines of an event where you're showing that you're putting in some effort to what you're doing, people are always willing usually always willing to give money to a good cause if they know that it's more than just someone asking, you know? A lot of people, um, in our society, it's give and take. So you know what? Do your best to show that you're giving your all on this, and the more that you do that, the more people will respond to you. That's the way I've found it, and finding out little creative things that I know how to do, skills that I have, and using them to my advantage to be able to make a little bit of extra money. And those are some of the things that I can recommend are the best ways that you can go about making a little bit extra money if you're trying to save up for a surgery. Um, how long did it take to grow my facial hair? Well, like I had said previously, towards the 3 month, 4 month mark, I started getting the chin strap and the dirt stash. So after the 3, 4 month mark, in between that up until the 7 month mark, it kept growing in. I did have it pretty patchy, but once it started coming in pretty good and I was getting about an inch of hair, instead of shaving it all the time, because I really like it, I, oh, I couldn't even do Movember. I got so anxious about it. I thought about it and I just couldn't. Like, I love playing with it. It's just, oh, I love it. But what I found, shaving is a myth. I'm not trying to knock anybody out there, but it's a proven fact that shaving is a myth. It may seem like it's coming back, but it's just because you cut it at such a blunt, like it blunt cuts it, so it comes back in, and then it starts, and it's because it's been cut the way that it has by a razor, then it's going to be like, it's going to get dead ends quicker. The best way that you can get your beard to grow without having to go buy some type of magical potion to put on your beard, go out and buy a pair of trimmers. Walmart, Target, places like this, they sell them for anywhere between $15 to $20 usually. Go out and buy trimmers for beards, or even like a small hair trimmer, that's fine too. And you put the guard on it, and if you don't have a lot of facial hair, if it's just peach fuzz, doesn't matter. Trust me. If you're trying to go for the scruff, you're going to want to put the put one of the guards on. Start off with the shortest one if you have barely any, and just run it along your face. You think you're doing nothing. You think you see like maybe one or two hairs in the sink. But what you're actually doing is you're cutting off all the dead ends. Same with the hair on your head. When you get a haircut, that makes all the dead ends go away. The hair that's left there now is all fresh, healthy hair that's going to encourage growth. So when you do this to your beard, when you're trimming all those little pieces that you see in the sink and you think it's nothing, it's not nothing. What you're trimming off is all those dead ends and you're encouraging growth. If you have patchy areas, what you are then encouraging is this hair that grows in faster is going to be trimmed up so that it's level with the rest of the hair that's maybe sunken into a patchy area. So you're constantly evening it out and encouraging the rest of it to grow all at the same time. So you're going to reduce the patchiness as well. So the best thing that I can advise you to do is to shave, and about once or twice a week when you're washing your face, if you have an exfoliant, just not anything expensive, just something used to exfoliate your skin, rub your beard. In the shower, just put a little bit along your beard line, because when you exfoliate, you're encouraging the hair follicles to move further out of your pores, which is actually bringing it out even more. So if you do that, usually after a shower, you'll notice a little bit more. Not a lot, but a little bit. So if I can, that honestly, trimming and exfoliating your face, especially the beard, at least once or twice a week. And that should help out tremendously. Um, anything for acne, because I get a lot of people saying that acne is ruining their lives. One of the biggest things I can say is when you are washing your clothes or your bedding or anything that your skin touches, especially because guys like us get chest and back acne, what I can say is when you are doing your laundry, get white vinegar, cheap, plain white vinegar. And when you put in your soap, put in a quarter of a cup of white vinegar. That's going to act as an antibacterial in your washing machine, and that is going to take most of the bacteria that your washing machine maybe is not getting out of your clothes, and it's going to take it all out so that there is less of anything being left in that clothing for you to get irritated by. I started doing it. It works amazingly. Also, if you are having trouble with your face being a little bit greasy or it's breaking out and your back's breaking out a little bit, you can also take a fresh towel and put it down on your pillow when you go to bed at night, because the towel is going to absorb any of the oils and bacteria that's in your face while you are sleeping and not cause them to get clogged up by constantly being pressed up against your pillow as well, because your pillow is obviously going to collect, sorry, but it's true, dead skin, grease, bacteria, and anything else that has been on your face. If you have not washed your face, or even if you have, if you sweat in your sleep, a lot of guys do, that's going to encourage that bacteria growth. So try that. Also, what I found is using a soap called African black soap. It's all natural, and you can buy it in most African beauty supplies. It's about $3 to $4 a bar. You can use that on your face because it's natural. It also is kind of like an exfoliant as well, so that works out too. Also, I've found that after shaving or having a shower, if I take a little bit of tea tree oil and rub it on my face or on my back, it works really well to get rid of that. And some people, before they shower, about 10 minutes, half an hour before, like to rub coconut oil on their face and in their hair, because it's going to help hydrate your beard and your scalp, and it's going to help hydrate your face. But before you jump in the shower, you want to wipe your face off with a cloth or a paper towel, and this is going to draw out all the dirt from your pores that the oil is clung to, and that paper towel or that cloth is going to pull those all out as well. And then when you hop in the shower, wash your face. Remember, after you wash your face or after you shave, to rinse your face with the warm water, and then right after that, wash it with, or like rinse it with cold water, because that's going to encourage your pores to close so that it's less likely that you are going to get bacteria and dirt caught up in your pores. I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly. I'm just going to deal with one more question, and then I'll carry the rest on to another video because we're getting way too long here. But last question: underwork binders or GC2B? GC2B has a comfier fit, tends to bind better, and Underworks tends to bind pretty well, tends to be a little bit snug, and some guys do end up getting uh, rips or rips underneath their arm that cause rashes and cuts. What I have noticed, I had my surgery before I could experience wearing a GC2B binder. They look good. I have given them away, um, gently used, and I have given away Underworks. I have bought an Underworks brand new. I have used Underworks brand new. I have used Underworks used binders. My determination is that GC2B is a great looking binder that fits comfortably, and it works for the first 6 months, maybe 4 months. After that amount of time, they start to kind of fall apart. I've talked to a lot of guys, and I have nothing against GC2B at all. But in my personal opinion, I wore the Underworks binders, and I wore them right up until my surgery, and at that point, I had started T, and I was starting to broaden in my shoulders, so my binders were getting really small, and they were starting to hurt under my arms. But the only time that I ever had an issue with having a rash or having almost a cut underneath my arm or digging into me was when I wore a binder that was obviously too small for me. And if you wear a binder that's too small for you, it doesn't always work either. I know that you think the smaller that you go, the better it will be, or the more layers you wear. Like some people double bind, triple bind, And the unfortunate part about that is the smaller you get into something, the less space you have to move those things. So if you're wearing a binder that's too small for you, what you're actually doing is forcing all the fat from your moobs, for lack of a better word, into the middle and up, and then you have a shelf on your chest. So in my personal experience, even though you might buy the binder brand new and you think, oh, I'm not flat enough, that very well could be, and you may need a smaller size. But for the most part, when people do that, what they end up doing is just throwing the binder on, looking at it, and they don't try to like rearrange themselves. And I found really hard to figure out how to bind. I'm going to do a video about that. I will upload one as soon as I get a binder in my possession. I'm waiting for some. If anybody has some, if you guys are post-op, hit me up. I'll leave my email below. But that's not the time for this, so we're going to continue on. But in my personal experience, from Underworks and GC2B, talking to guys, from wearing Underworks binders myself, and from talking to guys who have done both, GC2B works great if you are okay with having to buy a new binder from them every 4 to 6 months. If you are not okay with that and you cannot afford that, then Underworks is definitely the way to go. At the same point, GC2B is about $5 more than Underworks is. So if you really can't spend the money, then Underworks is the way to go. I bought a brand new binder and I used it for probably a year and a half, and then I donated it to somebody else and it was still working for them. So in comparison, for the lifetime of a binder, Underworks is better to go with. Price range, Underworks is better to go with. For comfort, from what I can tell, it's more of a 50-50. There are a lot of guys saying GC2B feels a lot better, and that could be true, but then there's also a large amount of guys that are saying that it doesn't bind as well after a couple months. So when you're thinking about that, really go and ask people. That's the best thing you can do. And right here, we're going to tell you that in our personal opinion, my personal opinion, Underworks is the best way to go. GC2B is great if you can afford it, and from what I can tell, a lot of guys are loving it. But there are quirks with both. At the end of the day, we choose Underworks, and that's what we give out when we buy our brand new binders for our contests. I don't have any more time to answer questions. This is such a long video, and I'm so sorry that it got so long. I'm going to quickly close this off. I hope everybody has had a great weekend. I'm so sorry about the video. Haven't been around to answer a lot of questions in a while, so I wanted to really get to some of you guys, and I hope that you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace.